Welcome to Build Your Maverick Business, the podcast for underdog, outlier, and renegade entrepreneurs. Brought to you by Strange Creative Studio. If you dream of going off on your own and launching your rebel empire, but don't know where to start, you're in the right place. We'll teach you how to use mindset, branding, and practical advice to build a killer business and transform your world. And now, here's your host, founder of Strange, Alex Pitt.
All right, everyone. How's it going? I'm in a new location today. I'm sat on my sofa instead of at my desk. It's very cozy. I might try this again. And this might be the quickest turnaround podcast episode I have done yet. And it's actually, for once, not because of my terrible organisation skills. There is a reason why I left it quite late. So it's currently, time of recording, 11 o'clock. And this is going live at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. So, yep, playing it fast and loose with the timings. However, there is a good reason why I'm doing it so late, which I will come to in a bit when I get onto the subject of this week's episode. Before I do that, I just want to say, once again, a massive, massive shout out to everyone who has said lovely things to me this week. Special shout out to Victoria, who I know listens to this, because we were on a networking call not but an hour and a half ago, and she gave me a shout out and said how much she loves it, and I went bright red. So Victoria, you are a diamond. And thank you to everyone else who sent me messages, who sent me emails. I put out a special request to you last week, which you would have heard if you were listening to last week's episode. And that request was, what do you want the next product to be? And yeah, thank you to everyone who got in touch. Turns out what people seem to want is just some level of audience with me, which is nice. that makes me feel good about the sweary ramblings. Once again, it sounds like this is very helpful to you. And that is all I ever wanted it to be. So amazing. Based on that feedback, I've got the wheels are turning, the cogs are turning. I can smell burning. I did a rhyme. But I am working out what that looks like. At the moment, I'm thinking some kind of group coaching. Maybe we do not just a pretty logo with some kind of live element so that I can talk you through all the theories, talk you through the practical assignments. And if you're a bit stuck, I can help you out. There may also be some kind of membership program where I can drop in, maybe a Facebook group, something like that. We're working it out at the moment. We're off tomorrow to 2000 Trees Festival. Remember what I said about the Black Parade? That's happening again tomorrow. So once we're back and refreshed and amongst our people for a few days, I am going to start thinking about how that's going to look and start working on it. So rest assured, your suggestions have been listened to and I'm on it. Thank you so much for taking the time out to get in contact with me about that. So anyway, that's sorted, admin done. The reason that I am leaving this so late to record is because something happened yesterday that I had to wait for it to happen. First of all, to make sure that I wasn't dreaming and this was real. But secondly, so that I could use that to talk to you about something specifically. So yesterday, what happened? Maybe the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. Before I tell you about it, I need you to do something for me, if you haven't already. If you have not listened to the episode number 4, Your Brand is Not Your Logo, I need you to pause me right now, go back and listen to that. It's only 15 minutes, so I'm hoping that you've got time in your day. Go back and listen to that episode, pause me, come back and listen to this one. The reason I asked you to do that is that you will not understand the gravity of what I'm going to say to you unless you've heard that episode. So pause me right now. I need some kind of countdown clock. But yeah, back in the room. Anyway, so hopefully you've gone back and listened to that episode. If you have already listened to it, I will give you a very quick recap. So a few weeks ago, I've lost track of time, I went to a festival called the Hanwell Hootie, put on by Marshall, the iconic music brand, the rock stars of music tech, if you like. And I talked about how much I love that brand, that it was an amazing night. Marshall hosted it. I saw amazing bands. I went to the merch stand and I was willing to pay big fucking bucks for a Marshall hoodie because it had the Marshall logo on it. Now, in the words of Spandau Ballet, to cut a long story short, someone in the marketing department at Marshall heard that episode. They then went on to play it to the whole marketing team at Marshall, and then to some of the directors, and then to his wife. Now, before you know it, I got an invite to the Marshall factory and studios for a tour. Now, I'm just going to pause there for a second so you can appreciate how much I lost the fucking plot that this was happening. Like, going from, I will, like, take my fucking money so that I can have a Marshall hoodie to, hey, do you want to come and see where we make Marshall amps? Like, the home of this brand. What the fuck? That is the coolest thing that's ever happened in the history of cool things, right? So I was losing my complete shit at this point. I was so excited. And I was just like, yes, let's do it. I will sack off anything. Anyway, I went along and oh my God, what a place. Like, our lovely, lovely contact there, Steph, was very much like, yeah, this is like Disneyland. And the fact that he works there and he still describes it as that, like, oh my God, it was incredible. We saw some of the props from Spinal Tap, the amp that goes up to 11. We saw the very first Marshall amp that had ever been made. Like, oh my God, it was incredible. We saw the production lines, just people stood there handcrafting these amps. I could not believe how much is done by hand, like hand soldering things. It was just amazing. The atmosphere in this place is phenomenal. Like, it's got such a family vibe to it. Everyone was so smiley, so happy. Like, they obviously loved it. We got to see the studios. The studios were incredible. Like, we walked into this huge recording studio, which is also a venue. Like, they have gigs there. And it was really disconcerting for me because, as I mentioned in the Your Brand Is Not Your Logo episode, I'm not a musician. So a lot of the technical stuff was going over my head, but I just was blown away by the atmosphere. And you walk into the studio and there's just no sound, like no echo. You're in this huge room and you're expecting your voice to hit back at you, and there's just nothing. It was amazing. At one point, we went into the control room where you've just got this enormous desk, buttons that I do not know what they do. And the guys were so sweet. They said, just, what do you want to listen to? Through these massive speakers, which were like 5 times the size that I am. And so we put on Creeper Cyanide, obviously, and just sat there thinking, I cannot believe that this is really happening. I'm listening to one of my favourite songs in this amazing spec studio. It was just phenomenal. Like, everything about this was so cool. And I have to say, one of the highlights was Steph, our lovely contact, bringing out a box of merchandise for us. One of the things in that box, a Marshall hoodie. I got my Marshall hoodie. Oh my God, I was so lit up all day. I'm going to put like a highlights reel on TikTok and you can just see how much I was losing my shit. I was not even trying to be cool. I was just like, this is the best day ever and I'm going to be a dork about it. Be like a kid in a sweet shop. It was amazing. Now, I mentioned that the lovely chap that we met, Steph, also played the episode to his wife, who it turns out is not only a bloody legend, she's also a business coach, brand strategist, and the lead singer of one of the bands I was watching at Hanwell Hutu. Now, her and I have had a couple of amazing chats now. We realised we have a shit ton in common and we got excited for all of the ways that we want to see the world of entrepreneurship change, especially for women, especially in our kind of space. Now, the fact that all of this has happened is mind-blowing, not just because like 15-year-old Alex was losing her shit completely, but because all of that happened as a direct result of me sitting here talking to you on this podcast. And the podcast is the result of me building my brand, realising who my crowd are that I wanted to speak to, and speaking to them directly. When I was Alex Pitt Creative a few years ago, this never would have happened. The reason being that I was speaking to everyone. I had this real kind of scarcity mindset around who I wanted to work with. I thought that if I didn't appeal to the widest audience possible, then I would lose people. There would be people who would potentially want to work with me and I would alienate them if my messaging was too specific in one direction to one certain crowd. I tried to be as generic as possible so that I could reach the widest audience. Now, I've said it so many times, but that didn't work, right? That didn't work. Since building Strange, since building my own brand, using my own framework, I've managed to hone in, be honest with myself about the exact kind of person that I want to be speaking to, the exact crowd, the Maxes of the world. Refer back to the Personas episode if you don't know who Max is. I'm expecting to see him at 2000 Trees tomorrow, by the way, along with the rest of the Black Parade. Now, all of this comes back to the title of this episode, Speak to everyone, speak to no one. And what I mean by that is, if you are doing what I was doing before, if you are keeping your messaging, your appeal, your branding, your everything as generic as possible to reach the widest crowd, you are not reaching anyone. It is completely counterintuitive. And I can say this from experience, right? I've tried it one way and I've tried it the other. Trying to speak to everyone doesn't fucking work. But really honing in on who you want to speak to and talking to them and only them is so effective. And I want to give you a few tips on how you can do this for yourself so that you can reach the equivalent of your Marshall. Now, first of all, make sure that you belong to the group that you're speaking to. All right, make sure you are part of the group that you're speaking to. Now imagine, right, if I were trying to speak to the Black Parade, to the Maxes of the world, and I was rocking out in like pastel pink outfits and sipping my Starbucks and being very girl boss, because that is very much an aesthetic and a look which I see a lot on Instagram, on TikTok, the girl boss movement. They have a particular aesthetic, they speak in a particular way, and they are appealing to a particular kind of woman. Now, I see that represented a lot. I never saw myself, this kind of like wannabe rock star, groupie, hanging out backstage at Download kind of entrepreneur. That just didn't exist. But I wouldn't be able to speak to those people if I didn't belong to that group. Like, no one would take me seriously, or they'd just be really confused by it. The reason that you're able to create these amazing connections with people is that others see themselves in you, in the way you look, in the way you speak. So it really helps to do a bit of work around your own personal brand and around what you really care about, who you are. Now, I know I'm referencing a lot of previous episodes in this particular rambling, but everything builds, right? This is why the Not Just a Pretty Logo framework is in the order that it is. All of these things build up. What you care about, your mission, your values, your tone of voice, the people that you want to speak to, everything is interconnected. And when everything complements each other, that's when it's really, really strong. And that's why making sure that your own personal brand, your own mission, your own values are really nailed before you work out who you want to speak to anybody else, that's really important. And it's not just so that other people can look at you and think, oh yeah, well, I like the look and sound of that person. It's so that you understand the frustrations of that crowd. Like, imagine you're selling, I don't know, chef's equipment. Imagine you're selling knives and spatulas. I don't know, I don't cook that much. But if you were trying to sell those products to somebody and you didn't really understand what it feels like to be stood in a kitchen, to be a chef, and all of the processes and things that come with it. Or imagine it like if you were trying to appeal to people who are campers and you're not a camper yourself. You wouldn't understand that process. You wouldn't understand what those people go through, what they feel, and how to appeal to them. So making sure that you are part of that crowd that you're speaking to is really important. It makes everything a lot easier. Now, the second one, and this is what I was doing in the first place, I touched on it briefly, but avoiding that scarcity mindset, right? Now, there was part of me when I acknowledged that I was this kind of weirdo, always dresses in black nerd kid, part of the Black Parade. I was part of the Max crew. I kind of chuckled and thought, okay, that's nice. There's no way in hell that there are enough people like that. That's too specific. I had this real scarcity mindset in thinking that there aren't enough people in that group and that even if there were, they wouldn't want to work with me. Now, I talked about how I do a lot of mindset work and I've managed to get over that bullshit. Like, why wouldn't they want to work with me? That's silly. But also, there are so many fucking people in this world. Like, having that scarcity mindset and thinking there isn't enough is not going to get you anywhere. It's not going to get you anywhere with your marketing. It's not going to get you anywhere with finding clients. It's going to keep you pretty skint if you think that there isn't enough money to go around. The way that I used to describe the kind of ideal strange client when I first started was, I want to work with disruptors. I want to work with people who say that their business is disruptive. Now go on to any fucking tech startup website in the world and I fucking bet you somewhere on their website it says that they are a disruptive business. I'm doing my air quotes again. That is such a generic term. Like, what does it really mean? I wasn't really getting into that persona work. I wasn't getting into the minds of this kind of rock star entrepreneur, these rock star brands. And that's really what the dream was, right? That was what I wanted to do. But I convinced myself that that wasn't realistic, that I was kidding myself. So avoiding that scarcity mindset, so important. But going on from that, A really good piece of advice that I was given once is that your niche is not your market. The people that you're marketing to and speaking to directly, they're not necessarily the only people that are going to want to work with you. I work with loads of businesses that aren't rock star kind of businesses, right? I work with consultants. I work with brands that look nothing like Strange. I remember how I said a couple of episodes ago how I love that woman who is the antithesis of Alex Pitt. She's very blonde, seashells, woo-woo kind of thing. I just bought a program of hers that cost $2,000 US. She has taken a nice big chunk of my money because I really appreciate her authenticity. I appreciate everything that she's got to say, even though I don't look like her, even though I'm not necessarily in that niche of women that she's speaking to. But I appreciate how everything that she says is very consistent. Her personal brand is very strong. Now, I had a lovely, lovely woman in my network tell me once that she didn't think that she would be my target market, but she loves this podcast, right? Our full portfolio of work is bright, colourful, it's pink in places, it's bright yellow in places, it's high-end and luxurious in others. We've still got some cool rock star shit in there, but that's not all we do. But authenticity is infectious. And me being the most authentic version of myself and speaking to my people has attracted those people, right? It's attracted my ideal clients and my ideal audience. And it's put other people off. Some of them I've heard from, some of them I'm sure just listened to one episode and then thought, oh, fuck this, don't like her. Or screw this because I don't like the swearing. But that's absolutely fine, right? Part of the absolute fucking joy of this life is that we're all so different. There is so much variety. And if you speak to everyone, it's just a really dull, diluted way of doing things. But let me tell you, staying firmly in my own lane and being really true and authentic to myself and attracting people like me, that feeling is euphoric. Working every day with my people in my crowd, being firmly in my fucking lane and doing work that I love. Oh my God, I had to pinch myself yesterday. It feels like only yesterday I was working on the fish counter at Sainsbury's. Yes, that's what I used to do, one of my many jobs. And yesterday I was sat on this enormous recording desk at Marshall fucking Studios listening to my favourite song at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. That is all a result of finding and loving my true authentic self and bringing it to work every day. Not having a pale imitation version that is LinkedIn worthy. It is speaking to the people that I want to speak to unapologetically because they will be listening. So my message to you this week, my loves, is to be your fucking self. Find your people, speak only to them, and throw a firm and loving 2 fingers up at the rest of the world. Don't be afraid to put people off, to lose the interest of some, because if you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one. On that note, my loves, I've got a festival to get ready for, so I will catch you next week.
Got an idea for a maverick business of your own? Learn how to build a powerful brand that will get people obsessed with our online program, not just a pretty logo. You'll learn a simple step-by-step framework that will kickstart your killer brand and help you find your raving fan base. Find out more today at strangecreativestudio.com.